Take a look at these two pictures made back in 2009. I want you to pay attention and try to notice what's different, what's changed in 15 years from 2009 to today. That's right, there are no phones. Everyone is taking pictures with their compact cameras. Compact cameras are dead today, and that makes me very sad because I've always been a huge fan of these tiny guys. In fact, I fell in love with photography after picking up one of these more than a decade ago to document a road trip to Vancouver Island in Canada. I have since moved on to bigger and better systems, but I've always had a tiny companion in my camera bag. I think that most photographers underestimate the power and the flexibility that having a compact camera in your bag can give you. But not all compact cameras are made equal. Among all of them, there is a special one, a little camera that many years ago changed the way I do photography forever. Sadly, I lost it a while ago to a very sneaky wave on a beach in Oregon, and I missed it dearly since then. The year is 2019. My camera bag had been growing consistently in size and weight as I kept adding bigger cameras, more lenses, and of course with them multitude of accessories. Worst of all, I wasn't seeing a clear improvement in my photography despite all of that investment, so I started to doubt my decisions. So after a lot of thought, I came to the obvious conclusion that the solution to my gear problems was even more gear, of course. So I gave the newly released back then RX100 Mark VII a chance on a road trip across Central Europe. I spent a few weeks in Germany, Austria and Italy shooting only with compact cameras, and I loved it. I loved having the power of a 24 to 200mm lens in my pocket at all times. And with a wide-angle adapter, I was able to go as wide as 18mm. What else could I possibly need, right? Not only was I more nimble, light and flexible with my photography, but the image quality was pretty decent too. Sure, the bigger cameras and lenses I left behind at home were sharper, they were better in low light, gave me more pixels, shallower depth of field, more dynamic range and whatnot, if I happened to use them, because carrying all of that around on casual walks was a pain, so I didn't. And even when I did, I kept missing shots because I didn't have the right lens on the camera, for example. That's not an issue when you are shooting, say, landscapes on a clear and sunny day because you have all the time in the world to tweak and play with your cameras, but switching lenses is quite a challenge in bad weather, fast-changing light, or in urban environments. More often than not, the photo is just not going to wait for you to mount your fancy lens or tweak with the settings. You see, I deeply believe that photography is mostly about timing, about being at the right place at the right time. Of course, a great photographer is the one able to anticipate that moment, to recognize when they happen to be at the right place at the right time, to visualize the image that is developing in front of them while others will miss it, and to have the experience and the skills to make it happen. But even the greatest photographers will fail if getting their gear ready takes too long. This small camera taught me that lesson, that more important than having the best gear and tweaking with the settings is to be there and to be ready. So much so that after I lost my previous copy on that beach, I decided to buy a super zoom for my full frame camera, one with a range of 28 to 200mm, very similar to what I had on the RX100. I was missing so much. I liked the results so much that shortly after I got that lens, I got rid of my standard and telephoto lenses. This one has lived on my camera for more than 3 years now. It rarely comes off. I make the vast majority of my work with this lens because even though it's not perfect, not by any means, it gives me the freedom to focus on the landscape, on the subject, on what's happening around me, instead of worrying about which one of my several lenses is the right one. I had finally found my forever love. This changed a few months ago when I moved to San Francisco. You see, I don't mind the size and weight of this combination when I'm out in nature or less populated environments, but here I feel like it attracts too much attention, both from potential thieves and from people who might get mad at this random immigrant taking photos of their house or car. And I know that most of this is just in my head. I've been using my big camera around here, photographing all sorts of subjects and scenes, and I have no problems so far, no complaints, and my gear hasn't been stolen yet. But I know it has affected the way I shoot because it makes me self-aware. I know there were photographs I didn't take because I just didn't feel like pulling out such a big camera for whatever reason. And every time that happened, I remembered, I kept thinking about this little gem that I used to own. It was not my plan, but I am now fully committed to a photography project about the city. A book, I hope, maybe even more than that. We shall see. But for that to happen, I can't find myself backing out of potential good photographs because I'm just too afraid of using a big camera. I can't find myself without a camera when I run into something interesting during a casual walk or just when I go to the grocery store. I needed this camera for that project to work. The only problem is that these cameras are not cheap. They are still sold brand new, but the used ones are really expensive as well. I'm not really sure why, but finally, after weeks of browsing every website and store online, I found a good deal on a used one, and here it is. I got it just a few days ago, but I've already made hundreds of photographs with this one. It does help that we've been having beautiful foggy mornings almost every day this week, but with this camera I feel more free. I dare to experiment and to do things that I couldn't do with a bigger camera. The reason why I feel sad that compact cameras are basically dead is because I was hoping for an update to this camera, but it's been 5 years since it came out, so I think this line of cameras is pretty much dead. It has been replaced with this one. This is more or less the same concept, but the lens is a 24-70 equivalent, so not exactly the same, and this is focused, centered on video, because I guess it just makes more money to camera manufacturers nowadays. And you know, I totally get it that for most people smartphones make more sense. They already have it with them, and the quality is pretty decent for snapshots of family and friends and that kind of stuff. But I have the feeling that even professionals don't seem to care too much about small sensor cameras, and I think that is to some degree a mistake. I believe, no, I know because I've done it in the past, that this one could be my only and main stills camera, and my photography wouldn't suffer that much. Maybe it could get better in many ways because I'd be much lighter. My life would be much simpler and easier when I have to carry only a camera like this, that's for sure. But I think that professionals and amateurs alike, I guess, underestimate the benefits of having a camera always ready to capture almost anything, even if you have a bigger and better camera with you in your bag. For example, back in 2020, I hiked to a Delicate Arch in Utah. I was taking a long exposure of the main attraction, the arch, when I saw a couple of crows flying around and finally landing on the arch itself. My main camera was busy with the long exposure, but I was able to grab this one really quick. Well, not this copy, but the one I lost in the ocean, and took a few photos. And actually, I like those even more than the long exposure I was making with my big camera. And that's what I mean when I say that we might be underestimating the power and the flexibility that a compact camera can give you and can offer to your photography. Now, I want to make real clear that my intention with this video is not to make you feel like you need this specific camera or any other camera for that matter. Actually, quite the opposite. I want it to be a reminder that we should take a moment, a break from all the craziness that we are bombarded with all the time, and take a moment to think about what we need for our photography, for our specific needs, because sometimes all we need might be something like this. Or maybe we do need that bigger camera, we do need that bigger sensor, but it might not have to be the newest and shiniest model. Never forget that cameras, lenses, filters, tripods, all of that are just tools. The art we want to make should guide the choice of tools, not the other way around, if that makes sense. So what about you? Do you have any compact cameras with you? Do you use them often, or you've moved on to smartphones, or you just can't use anything that is not full frame or above? Please let me know in the comments down below. Before letting you go, I want to remind you about my Patreon page. It's the best way to support my work and to get a deeper understanding of how I approach photography. This week over on the Patreon page, we talked about why I use white borders when I share my photos on social media, and we went deep into the powerful editing tool that Curves is. So please consider joining us over there following the link in the description down below. That's all for today. Thank you so much for watching, and see you in the next one.